The Sixers have been really bad at messaging to the public, especially since Harris Blitzer Co., since that whole group, HBSC, since they took over. They've been horrendous at explaining injuries, timelines, diagnosing things correctly, or at least passing that on to the public. There's no world in which you have your MVP, Joel Embiid, play in the Olympics, not look good in the Olympics, by the way, except for the one game, play in the Olympics, have the entire offseason where he's then supposed to be in good shape and is supposed to be on this delicate regimen and then be ready for the regular season, and then you're going to try to make sure that he's ready for the postseason. And here we are, and they're saying, well, no, the plan is going according to plan, the plan, but Joel Embiid isn't going to play on opening night, and he's not going to play for the first week of the season, but that's part of the plan. And at the same time, Joel Embiid went on to a podcast and said that he's not going to play back-to-backs probably for the rest of his career, which was one hell of a line and led Kevin Garnett to have an F-bomb laden tirade, which we also played on Wednesday. Horrific, not good if you're trying to sell the fan base on being excited about the team. This isn't how you do it. So the Sixers are under investigation. Joel Embiid's nowhere to be found. And then all of a sudden, we had something happen that we have not been blessed with in quite some time. We had a holy shit, what were you thinking moment from Marcus Hayes. Marcus Hayes, who is a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. I love the fact that no matter what, we always end up in these really weird places where columnists kind of get a little bit more leeway. The beat people have to go down. The beat writers have to go down. And they have to play it, very down the middle. You gotta be objective here. Okay, fine. But columnists get to have a little bit more color, a little more pizzazz, a little bit more flavor to what they're writing. Well, sometimes things go sideways. And sometimes when those things go sideways, you get the dog shit lead that Marcus Hayes wrote in a story that I still can't believe he wrote. And in a with an image and a headline and everything that he put together. Now, I will say, people who write for a paper, for a blog, aren't necessarily responsible for their headlines. They might not be responsible for the chosen image. What they are responsible for is their words. Now, I want to show you this really quick. So, Marcus Hayes, a couple days ago, 3 days, this is the same day that Shams announces that the Sixers are going to be under investigation, probably. So this goes out through the Inquirer's Twitter page. Now, I mentioned to all of you, I'll come back here really quick. I told all of you when I started this show that we're going to talk about the teams and also the media that cover them. And I think sometimes you have to have somebody who is willing to call out bullshit when they see it.
Hello, that is me. That is me. I am the one who does the calling out of the people. That is me.
Okay. So I'm that guy. Because I didn't see a lot of people, even on local blogs, calling this out. I didn't see or hear a ton of clips of people on the radio calling this kind of shit out. So, okay, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I'm here for it. So what do we see in this picture? We see Joel Embiid. I believe that's Joel Embiid's wife. And that's Joel Embiid's son, Arthur, who's named for Joel Embiid's brother. Okay. That's what we see. Then we see that there's a headline. There's the text in the tweet. Joel Embiid disrespects the Sixers, the game, its greats, and himself. Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley are right to rip him. This was written by Marcus Hayes. What did Marcus Hayes have to write? Because you could see some of the comments here. They weren't exactly positive. Oh, good question. Let's go to it, shall we? Here's what Marcus Hayes had to write. In the midst of Joel Embiid not starting the season, we have an image that he might not have picked that had Embiid and his son, his little son, small child. Okay. Now remember, these are Marcus Hayes' words. These are not my words. I actually feel kind of gross about having to say them because the fact that a person,
despite being a columnist, we have to be very careful. You have to be careful, Russ. Columnist, he's a columnist. He's allowed to say what he wants. He's a columnist.
Okay. This is what Marcus Hayes, who has decades of experience bloviating and writing some of the dumbest shit I have ever read, and apparently is very high up on the totem pole still at whatever is left of the Philadelphia Inquirer sports department. This is what he had to say. This is what an experienced journalist had to write, Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son, Arthur, as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great and to leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. This poor conditioning apparently seems to have delayed his debut this season. Embiid won't play in Wednesday's opener or the next 2 games. Okay, let's just go back here a second. Can we re-rack it? Can we take it back to the top? The lead, the first thing that you read if you pulled up this putrid pile of dog doo-doo, is he points to the birth of his son, who's named after his brother, who was tragically killed in an automobile accident his first year as a 76er. That's the lead. And then you say if he wants to show respect and be good at his job, he has to show up for work. Are you fucking kidding me? Is that what we're doing now? Is that what we are doing as a Philadelphia media skip? This is why people hate Philadelphia media. This is why people don't trust the media. This is bullshit. This is the kind of thing that, like, if this had been written on a blog 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, if this had been written on Crossing Broad or the Liberty Line or the 700 level, people would have been calling for the revocation of credentials. They would have been calling for the cancellation of a site.
And yet, this man writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer. This man is still writing for the paper of record in the city of Philadelphia.
Here's the worst part. I mean, as if it weren't bad enough that, like, he conceptualized this. Marcus Hayes is like, how do I write down yet another column tearing down Joel Embiid? How do I begin that? Here's an idea. Yes, let's think. What is a tragic thing that has happened to Joel Embiid in his career? Well, he lost his rookie season to a navicular bone. How do I start with a lead? No, navicular bone. That doesn't do it. Perhaps we go with the fractured orbital bone from Markelle Fultz's shoulder. No, that doesn't have the same. Let's start by mocking the son named after the dead brother. That'll do it. That's the way to do it. Fire. That's going to get so many subscriptions to the Philadelphia Inquirer. We're going to continue the push. Let's bring everybody over. Let's get all the paper people to come over to the digital subscription, and they're going to read Inquirer.com instead of Philly.com. Philly.com, too complicated. We're going to go Inquirer.com. Okay, cool. Marcus Hayes is out of his mind. And the best part is, when these people saw the reaction, when the Inquirer and the sports staff, when they saw the reaction to this, it wasn't even that, like, the editor. I have questions. I have many questions. The editor. Did the editor look at that and say, that's not very good? I don't think it's going to go over well. Did the editor have that moment? Did that editor, who I'm assuming hasn't been there as long as Marcus Hayes, did they get overruled? Did it go to somebody at the paper outside of the sports department? I have no idea. And I'm going to even, like, take this. Let's continue to take it a little step further, because I could show you what Marcus Hayes tweeted in promoting the story, and we'll come up with a sane judgment here for the first time seeing it, if it's fair or not. Unconditioned Joel Embiid is missing the first week of Sixers season, a month after signing a $193 million extension. And as indicated, he'll play about 60 games a year for the rest of his career. Imagine Dawkins, Kelsey, Bednarik, or Iverson doing this. Well, that's incredibly boring and lame and lazy, but I'm not surprised that that's where Marcus Hayes went. Now, there are people who have pointed out the fact that it's kind of hilarious that Marcus Hayes, of all people, is pointing out somebody being poorly conditioned. I would not go that far, because he's a writer and he's not in the prime physical state of his life. But other people did say that. I'm not one of them. Now, I will go back to what Marcus Hayes then tweeted after he got called out for this bullshit. Here's what he said. Let's go over. What did Marcus say? So, I rewrote the lead to my column and replaced the picture. I can see why so many people were upset about it. Sorry about that. Thanks for all the constructive criticism. Oh. Marcus, you're forgiven. You know what? Who could have known that that was going to be a really terrible idea? Who could have known that an image of a guy's young child and then calling him onto the carpet and mentioning the dead brother, who knew that that was going to be incendiary? Who had any idea that that could possibly go overboard? You know what, Marcus? It's okay. Bullshit. Also, there's a lot of condescension here. We're going to go back to it one more time. We started off with a so. Oh, okay. We started with interesting. Okay. Interesante. So, and then, sorry about that. Oh, okay. How about we just have like, I don't know, a little bit of grace, a little bit of decency, a little bit of, I don't know, mea culpa. I rewrote the lead. It was a poor decision. I apologize to anyone that was offended by it. I apologize to the Embiid family if they were offended by it. Maybe that's the way that you go. But that's not what Marcus Hayes did. He put out a pithy kind of quote tweet about it. And the thanks for the constructive criticism is also hysterical because, as you can imagine, he's responding to the people on Twitter who are some of the most incendiary bunch of people that you will ever see. And those people certainly didn't say,
Oh, Marcus, did you think about maybe just rewriting that? Did you think about the feelings that you might hurt and poor feelings that you're going to cause other people?
No, they didn't do that. I mean, people I'm sure were nasty. I would assume that Marcus Hayes had death threats. I would assume that Marcus Hayes had people making fun of his physical appearance and all kinds of other stuff in his DMs. I fully expect that is true. Okay, and he did not go out and he didn't look for sympathy after that and he didn't say you should see my DMs. Like, I can pretty much guarantee you that stuff was in his DMs. Almost guarantee it. But you have to be more responsible than that. What are we doing here? Like, are we that desperate? I know it's coming from somebody who did freelance blogging on the side, while wrapping up his career as a teacher. I get that, it might seem rich for some people, coming from me, of all people, the looking for clicks. But is that what we're doing now? Because that is not even shoddy journalism. That's not even, poorly decided, poorly constructed thought processing by a columnist. That's just bad. That's just, on a human level, that's really, really bad. It's inexcusable. I'm going to go over to the comments, and then I have one other thing that I want to get to really quick. Okay. Ford says, anyone with a brain knew once Joel played in the Olympics that this is exactly what would happen at the start of the season. In fact, go back to old Russ shows. I said it repeatedly, and he did it too. Thank you, Ford. I think we all kind of knew in our hearts and in our minds that, unfortunately, him playing in the Olympics was probably going to lead to this. Nobody should have been surprised. Andrew Fawcett says, calling out bullshit is Russ's mission statement. It kind of is. I enjoy it. I really do. I think it's almost like not a media watchdog thing, but it's kind of we just got to call it. And by the way, when I say something stupid, I'm fine when people go after me for saying something stupid. I'll respond. I typically tend to reply to people. I don't do the Mike Missinelli. Mike Missinelli is very condescending in his replies. I'm very dismissive. If somebody comes to me and says, I think that was a really bad point, here's why. Or hey, you're a dumbass. A lot of times I'll reply. The tone might be a little bit different. But unless you're horribly, woefully offensive, or we've gone way off the edge, I'm fine with it. You can call it. Call me out on a bad take. Call me out on something I've said on the show, something I've written. And when I'm wrong, like I was about the Phillies-Mets attendance, I will tell you that I was very wrong. Now, Eric Berkey over here doing the Lord's work, saying hit the like. That is true. Everybody, you need to hit the like button. It is very helpful. It helps the algorithm. It's all good. And don't forget, after the episode, go into the regular comment section and put something there. Ford, noting about the lead to that article, insensitive and callous. Joe Papel says, so nothing has really changed, talking about Marcus Hayes. Ford says, don't appeal to people's lost loved ones, but Marcus Hayes has always been a douchebag. Those are Ford's words, not mine. I don't know if he's a douchebag. I don't know if he's a good feminine hygiene product or not. Going back to the DNL days on Comcast Sportsnet does not surprise me at all. I think that's he's always kind of had. Here's what I will say about Marcus Hayes. I've talked to him a couple of times in person, not for very long. Seemed like a nice guy. On a human level, talking to him, seemed like a nice enough guy. I don't totally get why there seems to be a very big disconnect between that guy and the one that you read or that you used to see on Daily News Live. Maybe that was it. Crypto Cowboy, thanks for checking in. Says, hope you're well. I am well. I'm looking forward to this weekend doing 2 press row shows over the weekend. And I'm happy that we got to do this together on the afternoon. Ford asks, do you remember on Daily News Live with Barkan? Yes, I do remember. I do. Interestingly enough, I have had a run-in with the other columnist, with Sealski, where Sealski got upset that I called him a liar. And I think I've now litigated that on this show and on Snow the Goalie, that I said, well, if you don't want to be called a liar, then don't lie. It was the thing around the Voracek thing, about it, calling him a weasel. There was like a whole thing. I worry about some of these columnists. I worry about, there's an entire like group of people in Philly media that like, I'm not going to put out a list. If I really wanted to like start a firestorm, I could. There is a list of people in Philadelphia media, whether it's written, radio, or TV, that I genuinely worry about, in that they are incapable of handling criticism. Like, if I lob the grenade on like Crossing Broadcast, for example, if I say, hey, 97.5 on the weekend is really bad, and they should think about reprogramming it and, bringing in podcasters and all kinds of stuff, and just see if they can jolt it, because they pretty much have no ratings at this point on the weekend. Like, what's the worst that'll happen? I'll then get people who do shows on the weekend who are like, are you talking about me? I thought we were good. I thought we were cool. And I've had this conversation with a couple of people in the past where I'm like, no, you're fine. I mean, like, the ratings are the ratings. Like, you're fine. Do a good job. You try your best. That's all we can ask for in this life. But there are people who get really upset. There are people who do their shows in some of the major time slots who get very upset if you call them out, who get very upset when people tweet at them negativity. I won't go into which station is which. One station, I think, handles things a lot better and will almost kind of play they see a negative tweet and like, well, hey, thanks for listening. And maybe it's with a little bit of that condescension. Maybe it's with a little bit of sarcasm. But then like there are some people at the other station who actively just like try to like take the grenade, throw it back, and then like drop a nuke as well. And it's like, why are you doing that? Like the goal is to have listeners. Like the goal is to try to stir up conversation, maybe controversy. But that's not part of it. There are people in this city who like, I just don't think have ever been told something negative about their work before, and they don't know how to process it. I get this shit all the time. Okay. Going back to the early Crossing Broadcast days, there'd be times where people would be like, I wish this was just Lefko and Kyle. I don't know who this Russ guy is. I don't want to listen to him. And then over time, we started to get to a point where it's like, oh, I like all three of these guys. And there were still people who didn't like me, or there were people who didn't like Lefko, or there were people who didn't like Kyle. In a weird way, Crossing Broad was a perfect place to go and just get a very thick skin. Now, if you attack me personally, like in a very horrible manner, like, yes, I will certainly respond, and probably not in a great way. But on the content of a show, the content of written work, you can certainly lob things, and I will defend myself, and I'll tell you why I think I'm right. And perhaps history will show that ultimately my thought or my opinion on something was right. But if it was blatantly wrong, I'll tell you it was blatantly wrong. Because I think that's just kind of what we need here. We have a lot of people who kind of do the dodge, duck, and dive. Not the dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Not the 5 Ds of dodgeball. They do like 4 of them. And the problem is, those people, they pivot so much. One week, it's Nick Sirianni's the greatest thing. The next week, it's he's horrible and I've never said he's good. But like if you go back and you pull that other clip, they're like, well, I didn't say that. It's like, well, you very clearly did. The Philly media landscape is just a very strange place. And the thing that's also interesting is you have a lot of younger people that are kind of making their way into media and are trying to break into the written medium like the Inquirer. And you have people that are trying to break into radio at both stations. And I wish all those people a lot of luck. But then I look at some of the people who are the older heads and I'm shocked, absolutely shocked at the way that they interact with people. I listened to 97.5 afternoon show in the car a few days ago. I was almost mortified by the way that one of the hosts, who many of you can probably figure out, was talking to some of the people who had a dissenting viewpoint. And I said to myself, this isn't how you get people to listen in. This isn't how you get people to come back to your show. I like to make a lot of comparisons to pro wrestling. There's good heat and there's stay away heat. Good heat is you have somebody who is like has done such a good job with their character that you actively want to, like, you love to hate them. Or maybe you do hate them. But like you also kind of accept the fact like, all right, this is their persona, this is what they're doing. Go away heat is like, you are so bad at this, none of this is resonating, please get off my TV. And I think that the problem that the Fanatic has, at least with one of their hosts, maybe a couple, but especially one, is it's like go away. It's like, I I actively don't want to listen to this show because of how this person is talking to the listeners. Now, I've listened to WIP's afternoon show, and I get that there are some people who don't like the current mix or who think that like the show has changed a lot since Marks. I hear that. It is a different show. It's going to be different anytime you swap out one part or two parts, or you go from one 3-man booth to a different 3-man booth. But like, I don't think it's go away heat. I think it's more of like, there are people who actively want to call and spar with the hosts. And I think that that's actually okay because those people keep coming back. It's wild. Some people can't handle criticism in this city, but I'm here. I'm here ready to spar with whomever. Now, if Marcus Hayes wants to come on the show and defend himself and defend his lead, I always extend that invitation to anybody who might listen to this show, who might have the show sent to them, anybody from the Philly media. And if there's somebody from Philly media who wants to come on the show and would like to try to defend the Marcus Hayes lead, or would also like to pile on, or would like to offer their thoughts, I encourage them to come on the show as well. We'll see if anybody does. We'll see if they want to.